Hello and welcome to our phonics and reading online workshop for parents. Now the reason I wanted to record this is now we have started teaching phonics in reception and some of the children have already started coming home with reading books. I wanted to give you some information about the best way you can support your child at home. I think phonics nowadays is very different from how a lot of parents were taught at school, and I'm aware it's a bit of a minefield for some of you. So hopefully by the end of this you'll have a greater understanding of how we teach phonics, but also how you can best support your child at home. So in terms of reading, it is one of the most important things that we do in reception, starting with their phonics sounds, listening skills, and that translates into reading and develops a real love of reading stories, hearing stories, which in turn then links into their writing skills. Now, I can't tell you how important reading is, and it doesn't have to be about them reading stories all the time. It can also be about them hearing stories. So reading filters through so much of what we do in early years. So the benefits of reading is it develops a love of language, helps the children to unpick new words. We talk a lot about new vocab, about interesting words, about the meaning of words. It's really good as part of the bedtime routine to wind down and develop that closeness at the end of the day. It's brilliant to enjoy stories all times of the day. It doesn't just have to be a bedtime. It's really good as well if you can model the fact that you enjoy reading. So if you've got a book you're reading, don't be afraid to do it in front of the children. And dads, granddads, male role models are all really important as well to show that they like reading and they enjoy reading stories to their children. If you can join the library, borrow some books. And if you have a look at the Book Trust website, it's always got a lot of really good ideas for supporting families and building that love of reading at home as well. Now, phonics is quite a complicated thing. The way we teach phonics at school is we have a lot of technological jargon which we use straight away with the children. So phonics is all about the different sounds within the English language and how that translates into both reading words and how you can use that knowledge to then spell words. So two of the words we do talk about with the children are phonemes and graphemes. And the way we explain that to the children, a phoneme is a sound, but the sound that you can hear. So you might have in cat, k, at, are the three sounds you can hear. Now, if we ask the children to write those down, that would then each individual one becomes a grapheme because it is about how it looks on the paper. So the way that we explain it to the children is a phone is like a phone. So you listen on the phone, so it's for the sounds you listen for. And grapheme is like having the graphite in a pencil, which is the sounds as they're written down. Now, they don't come into play too much at the start of phonics learning, but as the children get further along and there are different ways of writing the same sounds, so for example, the sound A, you could spell it AY, AI, and other ways. So for the graphemes, there are different graphemes for the same sound. Now at Greenridge, we use a program called Letters and Sounds. It is broken down into different phases. So you will hear us talking and the children talking about phase 2, which is where we've started, and then they move up to phase 3, 4, 5, and up to phase 6 by the end of year 2. It's a very clear process that we follow, and we learn the sounds in small blocks. Now, one of the things we always notice is that some children come to us already knowing some sounds, but they don't always pronounce them correctly. And this is because things have changed over time, and the way we were taught at school is not now the same way we teach the children. So we talk a lot about the importance of pronouncing what is called as a pure sound. So a pure sound is just the sound of each letter. There's a tendency with a lot of people to add an sound to the end of letters. Sorry. So, for example, an S we pronounce the pure sound version is S. A lot of people say it's a S. Okay, that's not correct. Same with a T, it is a T, not a T. And then there's lots of letters where it's easy for some people to add an sound. Now, the reason that we try and concentrate on making sure they pronounce them in the pure version is it just helps so much more with their blending of words and their reading them. So, for example, the word cat, if you were to pronounce it incorrectly, it would be k-a-t. So that would be kata. Okay, if it's k-a-t, that's much easier to put that together. Now, I don't expect any parents to memorize all of the ways of pronouncing pure sounds. What we will try and do is we will upload those videos each week onto Tapestry to show you the pronunciation. But if at any stage you're not sure about it or you're getting a bit confused, please do ask us and we'd be really happy to help you with that. So the phonics learning starts in phase 1, and for most children, phase 1 is done throughout nursery. So it's all about developing speaking and listening skills, getting them to hear sounds in words. So how do words start? Can they clap words? Can they go on an environmental sound hunt to see what sounds they can hear about them? And they get ready to do some oral segmenting, which is where they're listening to how words can be split up. So in nursery, they might say things like, oh, can you come and sit on the at, just to help the children learn. Okay. Now, one of the games you might play in phase 1 is you might have some pictures of animals. You might say to the children, oh, can you tell me which animal lives on a farm? And it might be an animal that has wool. So if they get a sheep, then you could say to the children, oh, could you make me a sheep noise? And then have lots of barring children. So there's lots of fun games we play in phase 1, and it's all about getting them ready to learn once they reach phase 2. So these are the phase 2 sounds, and as you know, we have started over the last couple of weeks with the first 4, which is SATP. So I just wanted to show you the way we introduce the letters to the children when we learn them, and then that will hopefully help you at home when you're reinforcing them. So for example, if we have done the letter S, we won't talk about the letter names just yet with the children. So we will first of all talk about the sound. Okay, so I would do to the children, right, listen to the sound, it's the S. So my turn, and then I will do your turn, and they will copy me. So it'll be, and they'll do it, and we'll do lots of practicing how it sounds. Okay, they might do it in a quiet voice, they might do it in a loud voice, in a robot voice. Then we introduce an action to go with it. So the action for S is like a slithering snake. So can you show me the action? Well done. And then the next thing we do is we talk about how the letter is formed. Now for an S and all the other letters as we teach them, they have a little rhyme to go with it. So for an S, it is slither down the snake. Slither down the snake. So again, we do that over and over again, and we get the children with their writing fingers in the air to show us. We'll be like, right, show us, slither down the snake. Brilliant. And then we might get them to have a go on a whiteboard. So on here, we'll talk about how the letter is positioned and how it looks. So we start at the top and we go slither down the snake. Now, S is a really hard letter to start with because it's just a wiggly line essentially. And to get them to stand it up like that is very tricky. Okay, the next sound that we might learn is ah. So again, ah, ah. And for that, the action is like this, like little ants on your arm. So ah, and then the rhyme for that is around the apple and down the leaf. Okay, and that's how we work through phase 2. Now we do go quite quickly. At the moment, we are going fairly slowly with the sounds because we are working 1 week on just learning the sound and the formation, and then the next week we're moving on to blending them. Now phase 3 sounds, as you can see, get much more complicated. So very quickly we will be on to phase 3, and then the children start to learn about digraphs and trigraphs. Now a digraph is 2 letters that makes 1 sound, and as soon as we start learning that, the children will be able to say to you, a digraph is 2 letters that make 1 sound. So for example, sh, which is an S and an H, that's a digraph. You can't hear the individual letter sounds. It isn't s. You can't hear it like that. It's sh. So it just makes 1 sound. And if you look further on to where there's a picture of an ear, that is a trigraph. So a trigraph is 3 letters that make 1 sound, like ear or air or I. And a digraph is 2 letters that make 1 sound. So it gets complicated quite quickly. Now, as soon as we've learned 3 letters, so as soon as we've learned SAT, we start talking to the children about blending them and using sound buttons. So the way we do that is we would write a word out. So for example, let me start off with this. And then underneath, we'll add some sound buttons. Okay, and what we do with the children then is we talk about the fact that when I press my sound button, you say the sound once, only once. So we would press them and it'll be as, as. And we get faster and faster and faster and faster until the children can put it together. If we were to have this, so S-A-T, I put my sound buttons on here. So again, we would get them to read them as we say them. So s-at, s-at, sat. And somebody will hear the fact that that makes sat. Now it does need, and you will find this as reading books start coming home, for some children it takes a lot longer to blend, so you might need to model that quite strongly, and that is absolutely fine. If they recognize the sounds and they can say each individual sound, then it's fine for you to help it kind of say it out loud and blend it with them. So reading a word, sticking the sounds together, we call that blending. So we will say to the children, have a go at reading that word. Can you blend it to find out what the word means? And we have already started doing that with the children. Now, alongside this, we have something called tricky words. Tricky words are basically words that you can't blend. You can't sound it out because it does not make the right sound. So, for example, with go, g-o does not make go. So again, we learn these straight away with the children. And if you ask them, they should be able to tell you that a tricky word is a word you can't blend. So the only way of learning them is by repetition, flashcards showing them over and over again, what's this word, what's this word, what's this word, and we do that every day as part of our phonics. Now the kind of opposite of blending is segmenting. So blending is if you are trying to read a word, segmenting is chopping the word up for you to be able to write it. Now we've started doing this very, very briefly with very small words, but as they progress through, they will segment bigger and bigger words. So for example, the word cat, we might say to the children, right, we're going to have a go at segmenting the word cat today. And we do it together. So we'll clap the word. So we'll say cat, k-a-t, cat. Now what we'll get them to do is quite often we do something called Freddy Fingers, where I'll get them to hide the number of phonemes they can hear behind their hands. And then after 3, I'll get them to show them. So 3, 2, 1. Oh, so you should have k-a-t, cat. Well done. So there are 3 phonemes in that word. Okay, we will do it with more and more complicated words. Okay, graphemes, as I said earlier, is how it looks when it's written down. So it might again be a digraph, 2 letters that make one grapheme, might be a trigraph, or it could, for example, be 4 letters, e.g. O, U, G, H, that go together, and that is one grapheme. So when thinking about translating these skills into reading, and as your reading books come home, it is fine for you to support your children as much as they need. The reading books we're sending home should match all of the sounds they have learned. So there shouldn't be any sounds in there they do not recognise or they can't sound. What they might need some help with, and for some children, like I said, this can be a very painful process. I'm really sorry. It can take some children a really, really long time to get the blending to click. For you to model that, that's absolutely fine. The best way of doing this is to read every day with your child. Now, I'm not saying you need to read every day the whole book, come hell or high water, because for some children, they do get stressed about reading. They don't enjoy it that much at the beginning, but make it fun. You can share it with them. You can say, right, you have a go at reading this word, I'll do the next one. Okay, or I'll read this page, you read the next one. Don't feel like reading every day needs to be the whole book. You could do 1 page a night. You could do it in the morning, but the more you read with them, the more fluent they will get, the more they will find that they can read words without the need to blend them all. If you read with your child every night during reception, and we're doing phonics every day, the progress they make is absolutely phenomenal compared to a child that doesn't read at home. And if we can get them leaving reception being confident, fluent readers, it really, really does set them up in a really good place for moving into year 1 and into the future. So I really, really urge you to try and read with them at home. Now, if at any stage you find that you're really finding it tricky or they're getting a bit stressed about it, please come and talk to us, because we might be able to help with some ideas about ways to motivate them a little bit more. So the phase 3 sounds here, like I said, when we're segmenting them, if we have a look at the word that, if we segmented that, it's got 3 different graphemes there. The, at, that you would write down. High would have only 2, so I. And again, I think a lot of parents find this quite unusual and quite different and would have split the words up a little bit more. Shark, sh, r, k. And float, a lot of people would put the F and the L together as fl, but it's not. It's 2. You can hear the individual sounds. So it's f, l, o, t, float. Now for you, you might find that quite hard to get your head around, but for the children, because they've started with nothing and no sound knowledge, you'll be amazed at how well they're able to segment as we move through the phases. So as we move through the phases, we would aim at least within reception to get to the end of phase 4 by the time they finish. So we've got phase 2 and phase 3 where they learn the sounds, and phase 4 is a bit of a consolidation phase where they're looking at consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant words. So there's 4 letters in the words. We encourage them as soon as they have learnt some phonics to apply that in their writing and to practice their writing. So if you look at this example piece of writing here, this is perfect. This is exactly what we want to see in reception. So I went to play with Rosie. She is lovely. We had fish and beans for tea. Now, we would never say to the children now, oh no, that's not right. You've not spelled those words right. Because if they're using and applying their phonics, that is brilliant. So the E sound, when they learn it in reception, they learn it as a digraph. They learn it as the double E. What we might do though, because we know she is a tricky word that they do know, is we might remind them about that. So I might be like, oh, now don't forget she's a tricky word. How does that look? How might you change that to make sure you've got it right? But phonetic writing is exactly what we want. As they move further up through the school and learn different phonics, they will start to learn about the alternative spellings and the alternative pronunciations. So their writing will then become less phonetic, and it will become more accurate as they learn all the different spelling rules. Okay, but please try not to say to them, oh no, that's not right. If you can sound it out phonetically, then that's absolutely brilliant. That means they're learning their phonics and they're keen to write. So it's fantastic. Now, our reading system has changed slightly because of the whole pandemic at the moment. So what we do with reading now is once the children have got a reading book, they will get them to come home on a Friday. We would ask that the children have their reading books in their bag every day, because we hear the children read in reception once a week. So every week they will listen, a grown-up will read with them. We will officially collect the reading books in on a Wednesday, and they will go back onto our shelves, but we need to leave them until Friday just for the germs to all disappear before we give them out. So we will give you 2 books every week for you to read at home with your children. And like I said before, they should match the phonics that your child is learning. If at any stage you feel like the books are too easy for your child or they're struggling a little bit, again, come and talk to us and we can have a look at how we can change that and amend it for them. Now, like I said earlier, home support is absolutely key. And last week we sent you home some flashcards and some tricky words for phase 2. And there's also some of the rhymes to help with the formation. Now, we've noticed already some children have some great sound knowledge, but there's a lot of them that struggle to form the letters. So any practicing you can do at home, recognizing sounds, practicing writing them, reading with them. You can spread the sound cards around the kitchen, get them to jump on the A, jump on the S, jump on the P. You know, as much fun as you can have with phonics. It really, really does make a huge difference. Again, if you need any support with that, or if you want any other things from us, then please do let us know, because we've got a bank of ideas and things that we can help you to source if you would like to. So in phase 4, like I say, this would be towards the end of reception. We don't learn any new sounds. It consolidates all the learning from phase 2 and 3, but we continue to work on that blending and segmenting and writing sentences. It's quite a short phase before they move move on to phase 5. But phase 5 gets again into alternative pronunciations, alternative spellings. It is likely that some of your children will get onto phase 5 if they are making really good progress. But later in the year, I will do another presentation, share some more knowledge about what phase 5 looks like, because it does become quite complicated. Now, the other thing I was going to say in terms of home support is once your children get onto phase 3, via the newsletter, each week we will send out what each group has been learning. Now, on our YouTube channel, Mr. Ladyman and myself filmed a whole series of phonics lessons during lockdown for you to help your children at home. There is none for phase 2 because phase 2 is really important about practicing their formation. But once we get onto phase 3, there are YouTube lessons. You don't even need to really do anything. You can just play the lesson that links to the sounds and the children can practice at home. So once we get a bit further along, those links will be in the newsletter, and it will be brilliant if you could practice those at home with your child, just to give them an extra bit of learning for their phonics. So I'm hoping that's given you a bit of an insight into how we teach phonics in school and how you can support your child at home. But if you have got any questions or you're worried about anything at any time, please do come and talk to us. We'd much rather help you out with something than find you either struggling at home or just not reading at home because you're finding it too hard. Good luck. It is a bit of a painful process to start with, but it's absolutely magic when they start reading and they start recognising words. So yes, thank you for listening.